So our next presenter will speak about mainstreaming agricultural biodiversity to secure sustainable and nutritious food systems globally. And it's my pleasure to welcome Anne Tutwiler to speak to us.
So thank you very much. I appreciate being here. For those of you who don't know Biodiversity, we are an international research for development institution. And our vision for our society is that agricultural biodiversity nourishes people and the planet, which we came up with before the Planetary Health Alliance was created. So first of all, what is agricultural biodiversity? It is the variety and the variability of animals, plants, and microorganisms used directly or indirectly to produce food. So because of my 4 minutes and because we all, I think, have discussed and understand the links between our diet and health, we understand the links between our diet and planetary boundaries, and we understand that our system is not producing the kinds of foods that we want for our nutrition. And we also understand that if we can change our diets, we can reduce greenhouse gas emissions. So the bar chart on the right-hand side, indicates that if we just transition to a global equivalent of a Mediterranean diet, by 2050 we will reduce greenhouse gas emissions from agriculture by 25% over sort of a business-as-usual, income-driven diet. Similarly, we have studies that are demonstrating that there's a strong link between increasing agricultural biodiversity and lower rates of stunting. So what I'd like to do is to talk about 3 specific examples where biodiversity has been working to address reintroducing or integrating agricultural biodiversity into food systems. So the first is an example from Brazil, where we have been working on a GEF-funded project. In Brazil, Brazil accounts for about 18% of the world's plant biodiversity, yet almost the entire diet is based on exogenous foods. So what we've been doing with the Brazilian government, Brazilian researchers, is identifying about 70 highly nutritious but neglected species and conducting nutritional analyses on those species. So one example is this one here, which has about 38 times the vitamin C of an orange per 100 grams. When I presented this to a Brazilian, he said, "I don't even know that fruit." The project has not only included filling these knowledge gaps about the nutrition of these 73 species and integrating that information into the FAO in-foods database. We've also been working with the Brazilian government to develop new dietary guidelines that integrate these kinds of fruits and vegetables into the dietary guidelines. In addition, we've been working with the Brazilian government, who has just passed a law basically requiring that school feeding programs and other institutional feeding programs incorporate these indigenous crops into their food systems. So we've been doing similar work. I'm going to skip this and go right to this, so I can come back to India and the questions. So the last thing, we have been working at a systemic level to create an agricultural biodiversity index, which will measure both the status and the policies and regulations on ag biodiversity across consumption, production, seed systems, and conservation systems. And the goal is to incentivize both the public and the private sector to invest more in the public sector and in private sector value chains. We're developing the prototype for this index now with 4 countries and 4 private sector companies. And in a couple of months, we will be producing a book which details the evidence for how agricultural biodiversity improves diet and resilience. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne.